What happens when the child they once made powerless grows up and gets the power to protect people like her? I was 17 when my mother sold my guitar without asking, and when I confronted her, she told me I should be grateful she had given me a place to sleep. My stepfather laughed from the kitchen and said, "Kids who think they're owed something usually learn the hard way." 3 days later, after I refused to hand over the money from my weekend construction job, they changed the locks while I was at work. I spent that first night in an unfinished apartment above a hardware store, wrapped in a contractor's blanket, listening to rain hit the metal roof. I never went back. 11 years later, I had built a quiet life in Western Pennsylvania and worked as a county investigator, responsible for licensing residential programs for vulnerable adults. I thought I had buried that part of my life until a complaint arrived with a name I recognized instantly. My mother, Diane Mercer. She and my stepfather, Glenn, were operating a small assisted living home and had recently requested permission to expand their license. The complaint came from a former employee who claimed residents were being isolated, over-medicated, and threatened. I could have transferred the case. Instead, I asked to handle the inspection myself. When I pulled into their driveway, my hands were steady until the front door opened. Diane stared at me as if she had seen a ghost. Glenn appeared behind her, older, heavier, but still wearing the same expression he used whenever he wanted someone to feel small. "You work for the county?" he asked. "I do now." His face hardened. "Then this is personal. The inspection isn't." I stepped inside. 6 residents sat around a table doing a puzzle. Everyone smiled except an elderly man named Walter, who kept glancing toward a locked door. I asked about it. Diane said it was a medication storage room. The key, she explained, stayed with Glenn. I continued through the house, checking emergency exits, medication records, food supplies, and staff schedules. Everything was almost suspiciously perfect. Then I noticed the residents' activity calendar. Every afternoon from 2 to 5 was marked time. 3 residents had handwritten notes beside their names. Non-compliant. I asked what that meant. Glenn shrugged. "They get difficult." "Difficult how?" "Arguments, refusing instructions, making accusations." Walter suddenly dropped his puzzle piece. It landed on the floor with a plastic click. He looked directly at me and whispered, "Don't let him take you upstairs." Glenn's expression changed. "He's confused." I wrote down Walter's statement. 10 minutes later, I heard a muffled banging from above us. Diane immediately turned up the music. I asked what was on the second floor. "Staff storage," she said. "I'd like to see it." Glenn blocked the stairs. "There's nothing for you up there." I looked at my inspection form. "Then you won't mind showing me?" He moved aside reluctantly. Upstairs, the hallway was dark. 2 bedrooms were empty, but the third had a hospital-style lock installed on the outside. I opened it. Inside was a woman in her 60s, sitting beside a window with the curtains nailed shut. Her wrists were red, and a paper sign taped to the wall read, "Behavioral restriction." She looked at me and started crying. "Please don't leave me here," she said. Diane rushed forward. "She's dangerous when she's agitated." The woman shook her head. I asked for my daughter. I noticed a plastic medication cup on the floor and several pills scattered beside it. "How long has she been locked in this room?" I asked. Nobody answered. Glenn grabbed my shoulder. "Inspection is over." I pulled away and reached for my phone. He snatched it first. "You always were a troublemaker," he muttered. That sentence took me straight back to the hardware store apartment, to the cold floor and my mother's silence. But I wasn't 17 anymore. I stepped backward and shouted toward the stairwell, "Call 911!" A staff member downstairs had already heard the argument and was holding her phone. Glenn tried to shut the bedroom door, but she ran outside and flagged down a passing patrol car. Officers arrived within minutes. They searched the building and found medication records altered, residents locked in rooms during quiet time, and a hidden camera system pointed toward several bedrooms. The former employee's complaint had been only the beginning. Diane and Glenn were arrested that afternoon. The woman upstairs was reunited with her daughter 3 weeks later. Walter moved into another facility and sent me a postcard with one sentence. "You listened." I kept it beside my old construction gloves. For years, I thought surviving my childhood meant becoming someone my parents could never hurt again. That day taught me something better. Sometimes growing up means becoming strong enough to protect the person you used to be.